Out of like 100 true people in your database that know you already, there's 20 deals to be had.
But the problem that this stops is that you essentially plant seeds in a whole bunch of places and go back to harvest nowhere.
I attended the meeting, but that isn't where the follow-up stopped. I continued with the follow-up because I have a system in place. The purpose of a CRM is to remind you to do the work. It's not there to do the work for you.
Hey there, and welcome to the Leads Are Shit. My name is Taylor. I'm here with Andrew Fogliato. Andrew is the owner of Real Estate Magazine as well as the founder of Just Sell Homes. And today we are also here with Kelley Skar. Kelley, how are you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
And you're coming to us from Kelowna?
I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia. Yes.
Man, I remember you telling me this story about your transition because many agents, they're afraid to relocate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually spent a large part of my career in Calgary. I spent 18 years there. Still licensed out in Calgary, got licensed there in 2007. So we moved out to Kelowna in 2021. And so I had my license, my primary practice was based in Calgary from 2007 and 2021, so 14 years. Got licensed out here in Kelowna, and yeah, man, it's been an interesting market. Coming out here, you thought, well, get into a little bit of a market where it's going to be a little bit more balanced. There's going to be fewer peaks and valleys, but I moved out here at a time when it was like the absolute peak of the market hit in May of 2022. The average price of a home here hit like $1.218 million. And it's just talk about timing, man. Like, living in Calgary and spending that much time, 14 years in business in that city, the peaks and valleys that I had experienced in business were just, I thought that I was getting away from that, but apparently not. We're now planted firmly in Kelowna in a buyer's market. There's no doubt about that.
Well, as an Albertan, what I'm wondering is when people from Kelowna, what do you call yourself? Kelownaites? Kelownians?
Kelownians, I think.
Okay.
Sure.
So when you're talking amongst yourselves, do you say it like that? Like I did 18 years in Calgary? Like do you talk about it like a prison sentence?
No. I say I spent 18 years in Calgary. When I talk about my 5 years in Edmonton, I talk about I did 5 years in Edmonton.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I can understand why you'd look back in anger having such sad hockey teams since then.
Yeah, you know what, man? I used to be an Oilers fan. I mean, I still am. I mean, I was a diehard Oilers fan. The first NHL hockey game I ever went to was the Oilers and the Kings. That was back in 1998. I think it was October of 98. And I was hooked. I was a Oilers fan ever since. So then I think one of the last lockouts that they had, I was like, forget it. I went all in on football. So yeah, but Oilers make the playoffs. I jump back on the bandwagon, right?
Yeah, but you're a very passionate person when it comes to sports. I think that Mark Twain said that there is more drama in a few minutes of sports than there is in some of the greatest fiction ever written.
Yeah.
And that's something that you really embrace, hey?
Yeah, well, listen, talk to my wife about that, and she'll tell you exactly how much I scream at the TV. So,
well, the one comment is, as long as you're not a Packers fan, you are in fact a Packers fan.
Nice to see you on here, buddy.
And so now you're both a real estate agent and a real estate coach. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I've been a coach really since I had my team. I started my team back in 2013 and really kind of started coaching those agents. Officially became kind of into that world back in 2018 when I joined a company. I was with them for a couple of years. Wound up jumping over to eXp Realty, was one of the founding coaches of Success Coaching with them. That company, unfortunately, now is a bit defunct and not success overall, but just the success coaching side. And then I've jumped over to Remax, and we're actually doing the same thing inside of the Remax network that we were doing with Success and EXP. So we're building a coaching company inside of the Remax network.
Very cool. That's a big project.
It is. It's massive.
What do you think that like the biggest problem is to solve there? Like if you were looking as a zoomed out, you're looking at agents at like the brand level.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that as a coach you would try to affect change so that this sports team would massively improve?
It's
Is this like the Billy Bean method where you're just going to say, let's get more people on base?
that's that's the method that they have right now, but the other thing that we're attempting to do is to kind of rewrite the culture. Right. The guys that I'm in, and actually the team that I'm involved with, three of them came from the Keller Williams infrastructure. They were with Keller Williams for a number of years. And so what we know about Keller is that Gary Keller built a coaching company and then around that built a brokerage. And that is, the coaching, the training, the mentorship, all of that is baked into the KW culture and into their ecosystem. Whereas with Remax, it is not. Like agents, brokers, managers, recruiters, if they have a coach, they have somebody obviously that is outside of the network, and it's not a lot of them. There's very few, in fact, that actually have coaches. And so it's up to us to try to give as much away as we possibly can for free so that they can start to see the benefit, basically looking at the problems, offering the solution, and then, showing them the benefit of actually having a coach. And the only way that we can do that, it really realistically, is through results, right? Track the progress and then market the results. And so we've got a number of brokers. This is where we've started with it. We started with the brokers, the recruiters, the managers. And eventually now that we've actually got a budget behind us, we've got some high level support from top end leadership. We're going to actually start pushing out to the agent community here really, really soon. So that's going to be a lot of excitement, I think.
That is excitement.
Yeah.
Here on this show, we often talk about the complaint that the leads are shit.
Yeah.
And
Right
we
there in
see
the
it
title.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
that's the thing that like most agents kind of exasperatedly that's the moment that they realize it's just not working. They think that the problem is the people that they're talking to, but often it's misalignment with marketing and sales. When you see agents that are kind of trying to get to that level where maybe they're moving up from sales to more of a marketing approach, calling more people to them,
Mm-hmm.
how do you see the struggles there? Like, where are most people in a place where we could go and find them in their problems?
It's in systems, actually. So I've got a coaching client. He's based out of Southern California. The number one Remax agent in the world is actually in his office. They're on their way to an event today. They've got 250 people attending. I think he's got 24 potential recruits that are attending as well. And I said, okay, so what's the follow-up plan? He's like, I don't know. You're going to tell me that, right? I said, well, we're going to work on that together. Like we really should have been working on it a week ago, but here is what I would do if it was me, and let's brainstorm this. Let's work this out. So he's got the recording. He's got a bunch of notes. He knows exactly what his follow-up plan is going to be. As we're moving, it doesn't matter whether you're a broker, manager, recruiter, if you're an agent and you're shifting more from that whole online lead culture where we're paying gobs and gobs of money for Google generated leads, Facebook generated leads, and we're, trying our best and working our ass off to try to convert phone call after phone call, text after text. What I have seen in the shift that I've seen is more towards that attraction method, and just building a YouTube channel. When I first moved here, that's one of the things that I started to tie into was trying to inject myself into the community, provide as much information as I possibly could to attract as many people to the channel and as many potential clients and customers. And I wound up turning deals over as a result. I wound up attracting people, but my systems were rock solid. When somebody booked in with me, I attended the meeting, but that isn't where the follow-up stopped. I continued with the follow-up because I have a system in place. And I think that's where a lot of agents will fall down, regardless of whether they're calling or cold calling these online leads. If there's no systemization to it, they're going to fail miserably. The other thing is a lot of agents, brokers, managers, people in this vertical, in this business, they're constantly looking for the shiniest penny. And they're constantly looking for the next best drip campaign that's going to convert. And like my assertion has been for years, the purpose of a CRM is to remind you to do the work. It's not there to do the work for you, right? That's the purpose of a CRM. The CRM should prompt you to make that phone call, prompt you to send that text message, prompt you to maybe write that email and send that email off. And please don't send it through your CRM. Please send it through a different platform. That's my thing as well. I think you should be sending emails out through a program like MailChimp or Flowdesk or Constant Contact, something other than your actual CRM, unless you want to have a bunch of unsubscribes where they unsubscribe from every point of communication, not just email. So long answer to your short question. Hopefully that got answered.
My
Answered.
system when I sold, which was I obviously being the techie guy, I went with Google Calendar and an Excel spreadsheet. Just have their name, their contact info, how I got them,
Yeah.
and then just next follow-up date and a notes section, just in an Excel spread. I was cheap when I started out. But
Dude,
then my
most
calendar
people
would
don't
pop
even have
up.
that.
I know, but it worked. Like
Right.
I did pretty good. I was
Yeah.
converting, and I mean, at the end of the day, that's all it was. Like I had a client. I mean, I use her as a bit of a joke sometimes for the system she used, but she also converted. Every lead she got, she printed out the email, put them in a binder, and then she just had like a tab of like where I stopped calling last time. And then she'd open up that binder, start at that, and just start flipping the pages as she called them. And
How
then
long ago was that? 1986?
no, that was 7 or 8 years ago.
Super old school, but hey, man,
Yeah,
it clearly
and
worked for her,
she's
right?
my age, so it's not that she's like, a 7-year-old adapting this old system. This is like her newly created system that
Right.
worked. It's like sometimes it's
So,
that simple.
Yeah.
but the problem that this stops is that you essentially plant seeds in a whole bunch of places and go back to harvest nowhere.
Yeah.
That is such a prevalent problem that you're drawing on there, Kelley, is
Yeah.
that so many agents will go and do work and then not get the fruits of their labor because they don't circle back and they're not organized enough to kind of use patterns. So Andrew, when you take a look at what Kelley was saying, where he was saying that like part of this, as I slip in my chair there, I hit the little button on the side. Did you guys see me move?
No, well, I'll do it though.
Oh man, I dropped like 2 inches just then. I hope I'm still lined up with my mic.
That's just
But
age.
uh, it, so Kelley was saying that a CRM is there to basically remind you. Now I know that you use some drip campaigns. How do you see the relationship of how much should be coming from a drip campaign, and then how much should be elbow grease?
So I mean, I do agree with them about the like follow-ups, like the calls, stuff like that. But now the way that like we look at drip campaigns a lot of the time is that automated stuff that goes out right away is meant as that like initial, I just want a response, right? So like that very Dean Jackson, Phil Jones style of like easy to answer question. I want them to reply. Automation shut off on the reply, and a person comes in and talks to them now. But that automated is just like at scale to make it possible that everyone gets a response pretty quickly, but then you jump in with the hottest leads. Now the like emails that go out that we do like regular, like the long-term nurture stuff, it's like a weekly email that's a very newsletter style that goes out to everybody. But that one, like, it's not automated in the sense it's like pre-written drip campaign. It's very like hand curated newsletter, like kind of what we talked about, where I've been trying to convince you to buy a local newspaper for a while. Like what's going on in the community style emails every week.
Mm-hmm.
I do it one day.
Yeah. And look, I want to be like totally clear with you guys. When you're running a campaign and you've got a lead magnet of some kind out there, I 100% agree with the autoresponder, getting that off and then shutting it off and allowing that agent or allowing that salesperson to, can start to work that lead as long as they've got the right, the scripting and everything that they need in order to be successful. 100% agree with that. I think that's just a smart way of doing business and a smart way of being able to reach out to, multiple people over at scale, right? It totally makes sense. I think drip campaigns, the way that they can be utilized is a couple of different ways. I think drip campaigns can be utilized to, again, remind you to do the work. So it's a text message to yourself to say, hey, or a notification or a reminder to say, hey, you've got to call this person. Like the way that I coach my clients is if they're utilizing a CRM, the first thing that you're doing in the morning is you're opening that CRM and you're going through your notifications and you're knocking stuff off of your list. Like that's highest level priority type stuff. We're knocking those things off the list first. Then we move into the rest of our day, right? a lot of agents, again, they're just not utilizing a CRM. So getting them, this is one of the biggest things that people complain about on a consistent basis. Brokers especially, is like our salespeople aren't opting into our technology. Right. I remember I flew down to Austin, Texas in 2019. And I met with Gary Keller. I went down there for a technology day, and then I spent like an hour and a half chatting with him in his office. And this was just right around the time, so it had been about 5 years ago, right around the time they had just rolled out KW Command. And it was like maybe 6 months before. I have some technology knowledge, and worked for as a marketer for a technology company based out of Calgary years ago. And I had asked him, I said, "What's your adoption rate on the platform?" And he says, 100%. I go, "Gary, come on. Like, I'm not stupid. There's no way that you have 100% adoption rate. How is it 100%? He says, "Well, the way that we've set it up is in order for our agents to get paid, they have to submit their trade record sheet through Command." I'm like, "Okay, so you have 100% adoption rate so that your agents can get paid. How many of those agents are actually utilizing the program the way that it was designed to be used?" He was like, "Oh, well, like 18 to 20%. I'm like, "Okay, well, that makes sense because that's more or less the industry average." Right. If
Yeah,
we're,
it's
if we're
a
looking at a
tough
couple of
challenge.
million realtors across North America, 20%, that's abysmal, man. Abysmal.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, it's part like, and even you go to a lot of people, right? Like, and I mean, I'm guilty of saying it too, is like, I wouldn't rely for the most part on my brand's CRM and stuff and their tech. Because like, even like I got bought out, like, when I worked at head office, we would buy out other companies and then they would lose access to it overnight.
Yeah,
Right. So it's like, I was always just of even if you want to use the same, because like everyone uses, I think every brand just uses KV Core now almost.
pretty much.
Like, I think they're
Certainly
all there.
seems that way.
Right? Like, I would just
Yeah.
still get my own. But
Yeah,
it's like,
that's what led me to Follow Up Boss.
yeah,
Is I wanted to get some components that would be like just for us. Uh, and it also meant that if I changed lead generation, that I could kind of snap it on. Because the
yeah,
highest cost would be retraining everybody on another CRM and all the
yeah, it's a
little
huge
like
pain.
hooks and stuff that you have when you have the one you like. So I know that it's an old phrase of the best CRM is the one that you use, but honestly, like find one that you can start to work with, but then it's your job to build it so that it feels like home. And when you go through a lot of people's CRM, it would be like plowing a field. And every time you come across one of like six important fields, if there's something missing, if there's something that doesn't work, like an email that doesn't work, or a phone number that's bad, or anything else like that, it's like hitting a rock with your plow. And what you really want is like a name, email, phone number, address, notes, and next task. That's like the six blocks that make up a big building of a CRM. And the more it feels good to you to just kind of plunk through there and see what's going on, the more clarity you have, that's really how effective you will be. Like as a coach, I think a lot of people talk about for every like 100 people that love you. Like let's say that there's 100 people that said, Kelley is my realtor. How many deals should that be each year?
Yeah, I think the industry, I don't even know if it's an average. It's just something that is said in the industry, and I don't even know who said it. It might have been Mike Ferry, could have been Tom Ferry, who knows? One of the Ferries. For every 100 people, you should be able to pull 10 transactions out of that
I know
list.
Rich Robbins goes with 20
20, yeah,
Yeah,
which
as like
Richard
the
says
ideal to
20,
get towards.
but then he also says that group of 100 will know of 20 other people that will work with you if you engage them a lot.
Yeah.
But I think
right.
he's more on the reach for the stars side based on actual numbers I see.
Yeah, I'm sure the actual number, if you went and got like the true average in the industry, would be like 1 out of 100. Right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
The
like
that's
average in the
that's
lead
because
industry
most
conversion.
isn't a good
agents,
average. Like there's only
Yeah.
13% of agents that make it past 5 years at all, which is
right.
the sales cycle of the
Yeah.
average family.
Yeah. And just to
Yeah.
answer that question, 20 deals out of 100 people in your database of people who know you. Like, this isn't if you get 100 crap leads come in that are shit. you're gonna have not 20 of those convert in the next year, but out of like 100 true people in your database that know you already, there's 20 deals to be had. That doesn't mean
And
you're
this is if
able to
you've
get
got a
them all.
system in place to connect with them on a consistent basis,
Yeah,
which is what most agents don't have.
yeah, and that
And
even the
that's
20, it's like
Possibly why
aspirational.
there's only 13% that make it past 5 years.
yeah.
Yeah, which
You
is
know,
also
like
every
most
business.
corporations know that if you are not able to get repeat clients, you're kind of done. The best example of that I've seen recently is 23andMe. Like once everybody mapped their DNA, turns out they never returned. And now that they've consumed everybody who kind of would consider doing that, it's kind of the game. But like with
Yeah.
airlines and with retail, they all know that a consumer that returns is actually like 5 or 6 times less expensive when you take a look at costs spent than a consumer that you have to pull in the door for the first time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd love to track what the average agent doing 30, 50, 80, 100 deals a year, what they spend. Like if it, let's say the agent that's doing 100 deals a year, if they generate 60% of their deals from their database, what is their marketing spend to those 60 people that they transacted with?
And I think when
Right.
people look at that, you
I'd
also
love
have
to
to
know those
include
numbers.
the cost of their time, right? Like I know,
Yeah.
like I had a woman in my office when I was selling who did about 800,000 a year commission on her own. I mean, she worked 16 hours a day to do it, but at a $500 a year marketing budget. So you'd look at that and be like, she spends five, but no, like she works 16-hour days and she was out there all the time. You have to take that into the cost of acquisition, and then that's probably a more normal,
Right.
like cost per deal type of approach. But yeah, like her hard cash out was $500 a year.
So if we were taking a look at like that management of a database and maybe some of that internal marketing, right now we're middle of October. A lot of agents feel as though pretty much maybe we have 2 weeks left for stuff you start this year that will actually land this year. And then after that, kind of everything you're going to do is contributing to 2025. So if we were to take a look at like finishing off this year, let's say that our intention was as an agent leveling up, that this coming year we were going to start to care for our database. And it could be like a moderate database. Let's say that there's like 150 people that we put in there that would attend our wedding or our funeral. And then, you know, maybe we've been in real estate for a couple of years. We've done about 40 transactions and met some other people. So we're talking about a database of about 200. Okay. So is there anything that you would recommend that we would probably want to close this year for that we could action right now?
Go ahead, Andrew.
So, I mean, first thing I would do is just ask them if they're planning to move. Like a very simple email out along the lines of, hey, just getting organized for 2025. We're getting the plan out. Are you planning to move next year so I can add you to our planning? If
I
they're
love this question. And I like this question because if you talk about the future, it's way less dangerous than talking about the now from the prospect side. And the other thing I like about it is when you talk about the future, the people that want to do it sooner will still raise their hands.
yeah,
So I love the form of the question.
yeah, just super simple. Send it out, and you'll typically, I'd say, if you're doing that to 200 people, you're gonna get some replies. Like it doesn't mean every time you do it, you're gonna book appointments, but like we typically have seen, if you know, like the Dean Jackson 9-word email, which I guess we'll talk about with Dean next week when he's on, is like sending out a simple email with a really easy to answer question that would someone who replies shows intent. Like if we send that even to like 100 just like online leads that's been generated, typically there's always at least one appointment out of that group when you send it out to the dead leads. And
You're also talking about creating ignition here. So you're just saying, hey, if I stumbled upon a database that hadn't been active, that's got about 200 people in it, everybody has to move sometime, and you might find some people that are already ready to go.
Yeah.
So let's just test this database and throw out a floater. And the way that I would word that floater is a little bit different than Andrew. I would say we're looking to understand a little bit better of how to treat you. In this next year, is this something that's going to be real for you? So maybe we should be more engaged, or is this not going to be real for you? So that we should turn down the follow up and just let you know about the fun stuff.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to skin this. I would probably do a variation of what Andrew was talking about. I know what you're driving towards, that 9 word email. Dean Jackson, I love that framework. To build off of that, I think you could build in a 2 option question, right? As well as I do, Andrew, like the whole sell by chat type ideology when you're messaging people on your social channels. It's, hey, are you here for the great content, or are you looking to grow your business? Right. I think agents could utilize that same type of framework for, their database for their clients. Right. So, think about that type of a framework, 2 option question, something that is relatively innocuous, versus something that is a little bit more pointed. Right. Like, are you just here for the content, or are you looking to actually do something? Right.
Yeah, I always
That's
just flat out
so,
like asking. Like, it's different if you're talking to like a lead who doesn't trust you yet,
yeah.
right? But if it's you're going to a database of people who like that trust is in you, just ask. Like,
Yeah.
plan a move, I'll include you in the plans. Like,
I'd
don't
also
overthink
probably
it.
throw a phone call in there or two. Right.
Yeah, like you
Yeah.
like that's where I'd start the list, right? It's like you kind of start at the top, work your way down. But I'd also do a mass email out to everybody and just be like, but like make it look not like that mass email. Like this looks like I just grabbed my phone, sent you a message.
Right.
But like I like to send like 3 of those a year, anyways. Like we always do I like a thinking of you email. I like to do these ones. I do them a lot like personally more over social where I'll like see something like Kelly, if I saw like Packers news, I might just like grab this, be like, hey, saw this, thought of you. Right. There's nothing else behind it. Just hey, saw this thing unrelated to real estate,
You're
thought of
just connecting.
yeah. And I will often try to at least like send those out somewhat regularly to people. And then like on the real estate side, we'll talk to our clients about like if you get a listing coming up in a neighborhood and your CRM's tagged, just go email everyone who lives in that neighborhood, be like, hey, we got a listing coming up around the corner from you. If you've heard of any neighbors or if you have any friends that have been looking to move into the neighborhood, happy to help you pick your neighbor. Um, Otherwise, I can send you the details if you're interested. Just reply and let me know. Or you do the buying side of it of, hey, I got a buyer coming up, nothing on the market works for them in your area. Have you heard of any neighbors thinking of moving lately? So I
Hmm.
don't ask them directly if they'll move, just have you heard of it? I just don't like to send those too often. Like I don't want them to get more than like 1 to 3 of those a year.
I find that I get more passes, meaning that I get like past the point of interest more with people in my database, the more personal I can be. And for anyone that I have an address for, I send an email out quarterly that is, here are 3 sales in your neighborhood without any context. And here is the most expensive sale in your neighborhood over this last period. And I find that I like having one-way conversations that I know hit. So by sending that one at a time through my CRM, I can see that people have clicked it, even if they don't reply. And I know that I got what I was looking for, which is everybody who sends out postcards, what they really want is on the way to the recycle for someone to glance at it and be like, huh. And then like you just want this like little edge of value, not very much. But I think I'm really achieving that through kind of an email that's very easy to prepare.
Yeah,
And
I
I
love when
love that.
something sells on your street too. Just sending them, hey, this just sold in your
Yeah.
street. Here's the price, in case you're curious.
Yeah, if you want to automate that, you can always set your clients up on, on a matrix search or whatever
Yeah,
program people are using these days for any active properties that pop up specific to their location.
yeah.
Right. I've got a number of clients that have actually requested that. They want to see when properties pop up in their neighborhood. So, not that they're looking to transact anytime, but Taylor, just to build off of something that you said, I love that. I love that idea, talking about the 3 properties that sold on the street or whatever. We used to do this when we had a team. Every single December, I would have my virtual assistant would go through our database and look at all of the sales that happened and start looking at the 2 to 3 sales that happened on each client's street. She would then download those MLS sheets into a PDF and then save them into each client's file. Oh, what's Andrew's taking a picture? Okay, very good. Got to get it for the
Do it for
gram,
the
right?
gram.
Yeah, there you go. So then she would put those in there. She'd also go in and look at all of the active properties. So we'd put in a couple of active properties that were similar, and then we had a letter that we would put together this package. The letter was basically, hey, this is a 5-minute CMA. This is what's happening in your community. We would stuff the envelopes and then we'd stick them in the mail. And that would go out basically the second week of January. About a week to 10 days would go by, and the team would get together, and all we'd do is smile and dial. Make those calls and have our scripts ready to go. The script was, hey, Taylor, it's Kelley calling from ABC Realty. Hey, man, we sent out a package to you about a week or 10 days ago. Just calling to make sure that you received it. Did you get it? Great. Hey, listen, we'd love an opportunity just to sit down. This is an equity update. We know you're probably not thinking about making a move, but we'd love to be able to come in and advise you similar to what your financial advisor would be doing with you 2 to 3 times a year. I'm curious, do you have time on, Thursday evening at 6, or would next Monday at, 7 o'clock be better for you? So, going with that 2-option close. And that was essentially the script. That got us a ton of appointments. And the whole idea there is not to go in and list the house right on the spot, because we knew that, 75% of the people that we went and sat down with, we had just sold a property to within the last 2 to 3 years, and they weren't ready to transact yet, but they knew somebody that was ready to transact. The whole point was to get, I hate this term, but I'm going to say it, belly to belly, face to face with our clients, and just present massive value to them. Present the massive value and then ask the question. Right.
And we do have a question from the audience.
Oh my God.
Matt says, ask K-Dog what he sees as the future of teams.
That's Matt Richling.
Oh, Matt Richling. Yeah. Future of teams. Interesting question.
Very specific.
Yes. I just went through a modeling with a coaching client. She's looking at rebuilding her team. And so we were going through what the financial model is going to look like. So had her assistant put down all of the expenses and, try to figure out where the best split was going to be. Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Is it 70-30? Like how do the numbers shake out? Right. I think as markets turn, agents look for solutions, and the ones that can't find the solutions wind up joining teams. When the market turns for the better, those agents don't have to really do a whole lot of work, and the phone just magically rings for them and they do deals. And so they either wind up leaving teams or they never joined to begin with. I think now that we've turned the corner in a lot of markets across the country, with the exception of Calgary, with the exception of Edmonton. Those are the kind of the 2 outliers, right? And we know that those 2 markets are driven by affordability, really nothing else. I mean, oil is up there. That's great. But, let's be honest, tourism isn't massive. It's affordability.
People love the mall, Kelley. They love
the West Edmonton Mall and the Oilers for sure. But when you can buy a house in Edmonton for $550,000, and that won't even get you a condo in Kelowna or Vancouver or Toronto, right? That's what we're talking about. That's why people are moving there. So every other major market in the country, Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City, Kelowna, BC, Regina, every single market across the country has shifted. They've completely turned. And I'm in conversations with agents almost daily now. And it's like, man, I don't know where I'm going to get my next deal from. I don't know. I've got people I had this conversation with the guy the other day. He's like, I've got people telling me just to stay the course, doing the things that I'm doing right now because they're eventually going to pay off. You know what I said to him? I said, so what's going to happen sooner, the payoff or the fact that you're going to have zeros in your bank account? And I'm not talking zeros behind an 8 or a 10 or a 12. I'm talking like zeros, like nothing in your bank. Right? What's going to happen? So are you going to wait for the payoff, or are you going to shift and get out there and do the work that's required in order to yield the result? What are you actually doing? Start to analyze what's working and what's not. So I think as the market turns, I think agents definitely have a propensity to look for a solution, and teams are definitely there because a team like Taylor's has it locked down. They're dialed in. Your average agent on your team is doing what, 30 transactions in a calendar year?
Yeah, we've had a lot of rookies exceed 30, and that's right. Something that we're working through as well. Like, all teams have challenges,
Sure.
And you were just describing one of those challenges. When you're able to really train agents to operate in hard environments, like Edmonton over the last 10 years has been
Mhm.
arguably one of the hardest real estate environments that we've seen across Canada, as far as major markets go. And the agents that were able to do well in those markets, like they're high flying birds as soon as the market lifts. And so those are the challenges. I talk a lot about the solutions we create, but I also want to talk about the fact that I do have challenges. I do have, things with retention that we're working out and other things that we're paying attention to. And holistically, like what I see is the same as what you see as the future of teams. There are so few people that can that are effective in all three zones. They can run a business, they can
Mhm.
sell, and they can lead generate,
Yeah.
that the rest of the players will want to play with them. And I think that that's really what creates teams. I think a lot of teams are formed by overflow. So when there's no overflow, then there is no team in, but only in the teams that they're almost like little creatures, like insects. Like they have an exoskeleton, but once you get to a certain size, you have to have like an internal skeleton. You have to restructure and do things differently. And those teams are really interesting, but the little ones, they're mostly created on overflow, so I'm not surprised that they dissolve under hard
I
market
mean, I
conditions.
really do like the teams though, because I've started to see it more. Not a lot, but I'm seeing this model more of they're recruiting team members because they've nailed down how to extract the deals from a database. So they're
100%.
bringing people in just to increase that database and then they help them work it. So like they're not actually generating them new leads or sending them new leads. They're bringing them in. Like a great example would be like Alex Wilson in Toronto. Like he brings in someone new and his webinar system to generate investor leads and investor clients. He just takes their current social database and adds them into that funnel and just trains them to push, like kind of guide them along that funnel with them. And that kills it for them. And like we've seen that, like another agent I was working with, they were doing a couple hundred deals in Mississauga. And their motto is they don't give a single lead to anyone on the team. They bring them in, then coach them how to market and get the value out of the database.
Yeah, they're teaching them how to fish,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's been happening over the last decade. So you talk about the future of the teams. Let's talk about a little bit about the past. Teams historically, going back, 10, 15 years, I guess, back when the internet was still a teenager and online lead generation was very, very lucrative, right? You could build an entire team based off of $1,000 ad spend generating 500 leads in a month. I did it. I built a team based on that model, right? And so that was definitely a big part of it. Once I got agents into the team, into that culture, into that environment, I was very much the same way as Alex Wilson. I'm like, give me your database. I'm going to market to them. I'm going to extract transactions for you. I'm going to get people that are interested in transacting with you. That's my specialty. That's my expertise. That's part of the value proposition that you were attracted to. We took that same ideology and put that, at scale from a brokerage level when we had the company in Calgary. And I did all of the marketing. I did all of the email marketing for every agent that wanted us to market to their database. We had Infusionsoft. We created accounts for everybody. I wrote 2 emails per month. I sent them out on the agent's behalf. It looked like they wrote them. They didn't. It looked like they sent them. They didn't. But their database was getting hit with this content, and it would make the phone ring. Agents would come into my office like weekly and say, "Hey, boss, thanks so much for sending that email. They're making the phone ring again. This is awesome." Right. So I think that is the fundamental shift. I don't think teams are going away. I do not think that brokerages are going to replace teams. I think there's always going to be a need for teams. I think teams will be able to demand potentially a higher price point based on the value that they bring. I had this discussion with a client this morning. I'm like, listen, if we're looking at a 70-30 split or a 60-40 split or a 50-50 split, doesn't matter. If the agent that you're looking to hire is going to operate at an extremely high level how much would they have to, what would be the outlay for them to hire an assistant or multiple assistants or an executive assistant to be able to handle all of the things that they don't want to do, to Taylor's point, wearing those three different hats, right? What would that cost be? Well, the cost could be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a month, right? So is the agent better off by spending 30 or 40%, taking that cut off the top and giving it to the team? Or are they better off being on their own, where they're not going to get the lead generation capacity, systemization process from the team, and on top of that, the administrative support? And I think that's where, quite honestly, I think that's where the value comes in from a team-based perspective. It's, we have the machine. You desire to have the machine. You can't build the machine. We've already built it. And this is what it's going to cost to play with us. This is what it's going to cost to ride the machine. Does that make sense?
Very much like leasing the machine. You don't have to maintain it. It's got a full warranty. They're going to keep making it run. And then you kind of get to ride off that without the responsibility, because I think that makes a lot of team leaders' lives hard.
Yeah.
Is something breaks, all of a sudden they have to replace an assistant. These things that are time sensitive and important, and not having to manage that definitely has a value.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
that was actually a huge, for a while there, really good source of business for our JSH was teams lose someone, and while they're looking for someone new, we just take it over and then train the new person once they hire them. And we had a ton of like 6 to 12 month contracts doing just that. Like, we'll just keep it smooth for you so it doesn't fall off, because it's a huge pain in the ass for a lot of people. You lose the person and it can take a while to get it back up, especially if you don't know.
Even you guys have shifted your model a little bit, right, Andrew? Like, you were heavy into the Facebook lead generation, and now you're more of the nurturer, more of we're going to show you how to pull deals out of your database, that sort of thing, right?
So our main business is still like from like a taking payment, running Facebook ads and like generating leads from them. But we had a huge amount of turnover from people who just can't convert the leads. So like from like a training perspective, and we do some work on the like doing some of the nurture for them, but it's more, we're going to train you and work with you how to do that. Because if we're generating you these leads, you need to be able to follow up with them. Like, I remember it was a pretty big one, like early on in my career, one of our like biggest first clients, we got them 1,000 leads over 6 months, and they didn't close a single deal. And they're like, our system's amazing, our agents are amazing, like, clearly it's your fault, we're not paying you anything. And I was like, so there's a whole thing there. But what we found out as we were like talking to them more is like their follow-up system is the team lead would get the lead, look at the name and be like, okay, that name is this ethnicity, this agent on my team is the same one, so I'm going to forward it to them. And oh, this one matches this one, I'm going to forward it to them. Or this one lives in this area, I'm going to forward it. And that was the entire, but it would be like 2 or 3 days after we got the lead, you do that. That person would get to the lead within 2 or 3 days, pick up the phone, call them once, and if they didn't answer, it was a garbage lead. That was shit. And they wouldn't
Hence
call it.
The reason for the naming of the podcast.
Yeah. And I was like, and I know the next company he goes to, he'll be like, I worked with them, the leads were shit. And then the company after them, he's going to add them to the list. But like, yeah, if your system is they get one phone call 4 to 6 days after it's generated, yeah, you're not like, you might get lucky and get a deal out of it at that point, but it's luck at that point. Right.
Yeah,
like,
but just under the law of large numbers, you should run into more than one deal per 1,000.
Yeah.
Like, that's brutal.
Oh, I like, and actually one of my favorite ones like that, we had a client actually who has big news coming up, which is a whole other thing. It just made me think of it. But he had an ISA, and he called me up and he's like, Andrew, we're going to have to stop the lead gen because we just did an experiment without telling you for the last 3 months. And he's like, my ISA spent half the time calling the leads you generated, half the time calling our database. They got more business from the database, so I'm going to do that. And I was like, you didn't need to spend 3 months doing that experiment. I could have told you 3 months ago you get more calling your database. Like, all you're doing with lead gen is trying to find the good ones to add to your database. But the database is where you make money. So it's like we have to start bringing in that training to kind of show people that. so they understand what they're doing with the leads over here, or they're going to walk away in 6 months saying the leads are shit.
Right.
Okay, so segue there is that if we were talking about managing this group of 200, you've got their email addresses. Do you set up remarketing from that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like at that level, like we're talking $2 a day. Like it is going to be a super low ticket kind of retargeting one because even at $2 a day, they might see you too much. They just don't let you go much lower than that with your spend. But I'd have to change up the creative. But yeah, like even if I was doing 200, I just wanted to focus on them. They would 100% have rolling content delivered straight to them all the time. Like what I used to do, this is like for Over a Pint was a great example back when I was doing that show. Is I would take every episode the first week when I launched it, I'd give it $100 ad spend. And then I had a separate always on campaign for $10 a day that just rotated through my best hits. And then depending on what I had coming up, I would turn different episodes on and off. So like if I was speaking at a Remax conference, I'd turn off all my non-Remax episodes and turn on the Remax episodes. When speaking at the Royal LePage, I turn on all the Royal LePage episodes and turn off the Remax ones because what happens is they'll go to the event, they'll be like, yeah, I saw you with this person. I saw you with this person. I saw you with this person. And that's how I would kind of push those out. But I had it set up that other times would just cycle through my best ones all the time. And it worked really, really well. I do the same thing if I was an agent targeting consumers, take good content, blast it out when it's first made, and then like a lower budget, let's just cycle through the greatest hits with them.
Hmm.
It works.
So with my database of past clients, we also do a Christmas drop off.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for years, and we do a stovetop potpourri, which is a glass jar. Inside, it's got some fruit and cinnamon and cloves, and people put it in water on their stove. It makes their whole house smell like Christmas. Now, that has been something that has been like a silent killer. Like, we hear about it whenever we talk to our clients. We often hear about it when they call us for market evaluations. They refer to them as gratitude gifts. And there's not many agents I know that are competing for smells,
Which
but
they
I think that
should.
that might be like a missed avenue. You know, Las Vegas, the casinos there spend an exorbitant amount of money on their signature scents. A lot of the time, these leases are $80,000 to $200,000 a year, and they're designed specifically for them because they get it. That when it smells like the MGM, people understand that, they associate that with the time they had there, and that's the same thing that we've kind of happened by accident, kind of.
I think I've mentioned it too, Taylor. I can't remember if it was on the show or off. It's like if I was an agent, I would create a smell for the team that, like, if you walked into one of our listings, you'd know it was ours before you saw anything with our face or name on it. Like, obviously, you have to see the sign up front, but you know what I mean? Like, if you walk into the house without knowing it's our listing, just the smell should be able to tell you it's ours.
I want to make a Pine Sol brand deal because
Do
I
it.
can tell you there's nothing that increases resale like the smell of clean.
I'm here for it. Just got to find what that is. It works. And same like I think there was an agent I saw. He was out the Oakville area, and that's what he used to do. Is he had a smell, and he also painted everyone the same colors. He figured out like for us, this is the paint color that sells the best. So he staged them the same, paint it the same smell, and then he was adding in music too, where it'd be like the same playlist. So he's like, every house you go into right away, even without our face or name on it, you know it's our listing. And they'd put like framed pictures around the house that also explain different parts of the home. So it was like a toured experience through each house they listed.
Interesting.
I thought about
That is
tinting my
creative.
my MLS photos. At one
Yeah.
point, I thought about tinting them like a certain way, like a filter
Yeah.
that would just be associated with us.
There's a
Sepia.
team in Windsor. I want to say it's Border City Living. They found like an artsy photographer and made an exclusive deal that they could only do real estate photography with their team because the photographer had like a unique style and they were going after that artsy demographic. And that was it. It's like you could tell their listings by the style of the photographs. And they were the only ones allowed to use that photographer to do it.
Hmm.
It's like one of those little differentiators that like that look that pops off the screen, right? that no one else has. So it's like there's some interesting things you can do, like in a stupider way. Like I was joking about it with back when I was selling, I was gonna start doing it and then I stopped selling. Uh I was gonna do the Seinfeld thing. I was gonna hide like a Superman thing in every single house. So it became like a game, like an inside joke with me. People like, where's Superman hid in the house on every listing? And then
Right.
do the little things like just find those little
That's one of
opportunities.
the things that I did.
Yeah.
I did the House Hulk. So we would shoot listings with this like incredible Hulk figurine somewhere in
Yeah.
the listing video, and then people could comment in on where they saw it,
Yeah.
and we would send them like prizes for that.
Yeah. And like Craig's saying in the comment there, like the MLS, some of them shut some of these things down if they're too like branded. I mean, they couldn't really shut down a style of photo. Like, yeah, they could take watermarks or anything like that off, but there's always a way. Like the Superman one, they'd have to even. I don't even know if they could do that, but I would
Yeah, that
100%
would be
throw.
tough.
Yeah, but
Tough
actually,
to
there's
police
another
that.
good one I saw. They did it for about a year. It was a team. They scrapped a or strapped a GoPro on the dog, and they just put treats along a certain path, and then they'd have the dog run through the house to do the listing video.
I definitely have thought about doing that for coming soon
Yeah,
because the dog would kind of be random, and you'd kind of get like a not really the desirable view of the house.
yeah,
Probably see a lot more toilet than you'd like.
be part of the fun.
Yeah, a
But
little
for a
bit more of
sneak
the
peek or
yard.
for a coming soon,
Yeah,
that would work really well.
well, especially if you got a fun looking dog there too. Um, Actually, you know what? I just made me think of like tour of the home. Like, you know what content killed it for an agent one time? It was 8 seconds, and I ended up sharing it in our newsletter that went out. It was behind the scenes of shooting a listing video, and they showed like that product of like, when you're like the camera's walking to the house and the doors magically open as it comes in. And then they had another camera behind that showed the agent lying on the ground with his
Oh
arm
yeah,
just like pushing it where the camera
I
couldn't
remember that.
see. And it's like
Yeah,
dispelling the magic of how this works.
right.
And it was like that little video like got the guy like 3 million views.
Crazy.
Like those little things work so well. It's like showing the magic behind the scenes, right? Like how the magician does the trick. Like think of what's that show, like The Masked Magician, when at least when I was a kid. It's around, I don't know if you guys used to watch that one, but it was like he never revealed himself till the end, but he just showed how magic tricks were done. Like he'd do the trick, you'd be like, I have no idea how to do that. And then he'd be like, and then he'd turn the trick around and show you how it worked.
Huh.
Well, magic is a lot like foolery, and that whole show was super foolery. Like, this guy had to wear a mask because he said he was concerned for his
Yeah.
life. Like, if you
Right.
met a
Yeah, it was
magician,
so
they're not going to
entertaining.
hurt anybody, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, they're
That's
gonna
like
make
being
him
attacked by a
disappear.
face painter. Like, it's just not going
It
to
would
happen.
amazing though.
Disappear.
It's part of the
Yeah.
story, man. It works.
I'm
You're the masked realtor giving away real estate agent secrets.
Yeah, the whole idea around video and the success that these agents have, like 3 million views. Okay, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many of those viewers were realtors?
Yeah.
Probably about
Well,
2.9 million.
no, that one went viral first in consumers, but like another great example of that, I saw an agent do it. We even covered it in REM. They gave, when Taylor Swift announced in Toronto, they did a ticket giveaway if you followed their Instagram, and then they get your
Mhm.
email, put you into a raffle, and give you Taylor Swift tickets. And
Right.
they got 30,000 people added to their database and like 100,000 followers on Instagram.
Great. So how many deals did they turn out of that?
Because people all over Canada, and it was people who didn't care, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the wrong, like I think she's too big of a, like if I was doing that locally, like say I
Oh,
wanted to do that same idea, I would say like you have to come somewhere in Newmarket. Like you have to follow me, but then you have to like meet me in person in Newmarket as part of the challenge. Right? Like it's I need
so
you to
do a
be
better filter. But
yeah.
Kelly's got a great point, and you've said this before, Andrew, which is don't measure success as followers and likes. Like measure success as DMs and deals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like how many people, and we all know multiple of them, and everyone in this industry does, who they start to get a little bit of success on their content in the agent community, and then their followers grow in the agent community, and now all their success is actually just agents loving their stuff, but they don't do
Right.
any real business as a realtor.
So
right? Like
this
that's
is
very
something that's
common.
kind of ties back to what we were talking about, and I'm not sure if we had hit record when we were saying this, but somebody was saying that shadow banning is not a thing that Instagram does. It is a result of doing a poor marketing strategy.
Yeah, so the example that so this goes back to someone I knew who worked at Instagram, and I was asking him about the process. And I was like, is there any truth to this? Because we had a client who was convinced they were shadow banned. And basically the explanation I got, because it's someone who like helped write the algorithm, was essentially like when you do something that makes you go mega viral. So let's use the Taylor Swift example. He got a ton of like 20 to
Swifties.
40-year-old women
Yeah, he
to
got a ton
follow
of
him,
Swifties.
and they're not exclusive to his area. So he now has all these people. Well, the next post he puts out that's like here's the market stats for Leslieville. Do you think they care? Or
It will
they'll ever
bomb,
engage with that? No, and that's
right?
all it is you've misaligned your audience. And this is where like team leads screw up is like they use the same account to recruit agents that they do to target consumers for their business. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I put out all this consumer content, now I'm putting out a recruiting post. Why didn't it reach anyone? Or I put out a bunch of recruiting content, then I went back to posting my listings and none of the consumers liked it. Like you need one account for recruiting, you need one account that focuses on the consumer stuff, or it's not going to work. Like just one, like really every account you have should be focused on one audience. And if you try
Yeah,
to
that's
mix that up, you're going to screw things up.
I've been having that conversation with brokers here lately, and anybody that is on Instagram that wants to dive into reels, and you know, it's the whole idea of posting real estate content onto your Instagram. It's like, what's the MLS for? Is the MLS for advertising properties? Yes. Do most consumers go to the MLS to look at properties? Yes. How many of your consumers, from a brokerage standpoint, have come to your Instagram and scheduled a showing through your Instagram DMs? Like very few. It'd probably be about the same percentage of people that actually say that open houses don't work, and then you get that one person that says, "Oh, well, I bought my house from an open house." Right? So it's probably around the
Like
same
the exception, not
percentages.
the rule.
Exactly right. Right? So why are brokerages posting up MLS related content onto their channels? Like
It's an
my
appeasement thing instead of a,
well,
you're not
true,
doing
but you
that to
can
get results. You're doing that to make your agent happy.
right, and I think there's a different way to make
Yeah.
the agent happy. A little, talking about the creative process, right?
Yeah.
Getting the agent involved, doing an agent like I've got a brokerage that does Monday interviews with their realtors, and they post this content up onto their IG.
Yeah.
Really smart. That's how they feature their agents. They don't feature them through MLS related content,
Right.
right? And the other thing is you can then utilize some of that content to start that actually helps the recruitment process, right? Because agents that are on Instagram that are following brokerages, let's be honest, most agents are following brokerages. Once they see that style of content, they're like, geez, my broker isn't doing that for me.
But this is also where
Like,
you
why
need to
isn't
know
my
who your
broker
ideal
featuring
recruit
me?
is, right? Like there are like some people want that, right? Like if you're going after the
Yeah.
Instagram focused realtors, but there's also those realtors who they don't care about Instagram. They actually just
Yeah.
love the idea that, oh no, I don't even have to think about it. My brokers post them all on Instagram for me, so I can tell
Right.
my clients they're getting social. That person has no clue what's happening on social,
That's
but
right.
that one fact is a huge sticking point of why they're staying there,
Could
right? And
be.
like you have to know like I know agents who do like 600,000 commission solo, and they love that their brokerage posts their listings for them. But that has to be the type of recruit you're going after. If you're getting like you're recruiting, say, like one of us who know how this all works, that is the complete opposite of an effective way to recruit us.
Right.
So it's like figuring out who, and like I talk a lot with brokerages on this topic of like using Instagram to recruit. And I always have like the first question is like, what's the type of agent you want?
Right.
And it's very different results based on that.
Yeah.
Well, I like. Sorry, Kelly.
No, go ahead.
Well, I like the idea that we kind of circle back there and talked a little bit about how you value your audience, how you make sure that, your conversion matches your lead sources, and also to maybe pay attention a little bit differently to what a database looks like. and what you can do with it, because there's so many people that are like, man, I can't find any of those really shiny pennies in the marketplace. Meanwhile, they're sitting on dollars in their database and they just can't see it because they haven't looked that way. Now, if you were looking to restructure your business and get a little bit more alignment with that, maybe you've already completed the hurdles of your first, second, third year, you're a professional realtor that's kind of leveling up from there. That's definitely a time where I would look at hiring a coach. And so you can reach Kelley on, you can definitely find you on Instagram and other social media. Is there one place that you'd say go find them or go find you?
Go find me on Instagram at Kelley Skar, KELLEYSKAR. Find me on
We'll
Instagram.
link it. Aaron, when you're editing this episode, make sure you're putting this in the descriptions. Thanks to Kelley.
There you go.
And then also, if you're looking at a little bit more of that internal and external marketing, well, Andrew founded Just Sell Homes, but you can also contact them, get set up, see if they're the right fit for what you're looking to do, and roll from there. And myself, I'm a realtor.
Referrals for Edmonton.
Yeah, referrals for Edmonton. I'm a real estate agent in probably the hottest market in Canada right now. If there are people out there that are looking for a market that's actually having an upside, I had 32 offers on my last listing. And so things are spicy here.
And next week, we got Dean Jackson coming on the show. So he was supposed to come last week, but there was a small hurricane in Florida that derailed him being able to be on the show. Was that last week or the week before? I don't remember. Anyways,
I think it was the week before, but if you know, you know, like the inventor of the squeeze page, the master of the listing multiplier, Dean is going to be here to basically talk about how he became very wealthy in just understanding how people relate to real estate. He's he really is like one of those oracles of real estate that you just kind of run into if you hang out in the right places.
The most stolen content that any one creator has. It's impressive. But thanks, Kelley. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. And
thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next week. And until then, if you say the leads are shit, know that you probably need a little bit more alignment.